Hey everyone, in this video we're going to be going over the possible Starlink IPO coming soon and their breaking news of 600,000 pre-orders. There's a lot to unpack, but before we do, I'd like to also mention I am personally invested in SpaceX, so that's full disclosure there. Starlink is owned by SpaceX, and since I'm a private investor in SpaceX, I do have exposure to the success of Starlink. That said, if you haven't liked this video, please smash the like button, and if you're not subscribed yet, definitely subscribe to the channel. Now let's get into the details. So first things first, the breaking news. Today we found out that SpaceX president Gwyneth Shotwell, she basically said that there are 600,000 global Starlink internet pre-orders. Now, to be clear, 100,000 Starlink terminals have already been shipped out, but the pre-order list is already at 600,000. This number was in the last 9 months. So this is a very new number, increasing orders by the day, I'm assuming, and I expect to see a lot more orders as they expand the territories that SpaceX can deliver to. Now, for those unaware, SpaceX owns Starlink. And Elon Musk started SpaceX. It's his space company. It's a private company. And Starlink, which could spin off of SpaceX, Elon has talked about that in the past, provides high-speed satellite internet. Now, this is not just like slow satellite internet like you may have tried in the past if you've ever tried a satellite internet. He's talking about very high speed, so you'll be able to game without lag, stream, everything basically you need to do on the internet, and we're talking about worldwide. Their goal is to be able to give high-speed internet to the entire world. So first, let's just go over the breaking news and what it means for the business economically. Going over the numbers, we know that it cost $500 for a customer to buy the terminal from SpaceX. 600,000 orders at $500 a piece is $300 million in revenue. So that is just for the terminal cost, not including the subscription for internet access. We also know for the subscription that SpaceX and Starlink charge $99 a month for the internet speed. There is no data cap on that, from my understanding. 600,000 subscribers at $99 a month and 12 months a year basically means $712.8 million in annual recurring revenue. So this is a huge ARR, and that's important because we want to know the revenue that can basically be consistent, and we can know it's going to come year over year. And this number I expect to continue to expand as they keep getting more and more orders. Now, ARR is more valuable than just regular revenue, as I said, because you can expect them to continue to repeat these purchases year over year. And this is, like I said, just the start. Now, between the terminal sales and the subscription, Starlink has about $1 billion in revenue. We know that those orders came in the last 9 months, so we're talking about a single year. Now, to be clear, though, like I said earlier, they've only shipped out 100,000 terminals. But that said, if they had the production ready and they were pumping them out, they could theoretically have shipped out all 600,000 orders. So their revenue, should be $1 billion basically for the year. But that said, it's going to be spread out because they have to ramp production, etc. But just to give a common, idea, for example, NVIDIA trades at a price to sales of 23.5. Now, I would imagine that a Elon Musk startup with massive potential that's within a massive space company like SpaceX, has access to their technology, should trade at a much higher multiple than a mature company like NVIDIA. I mean, it's as simple as that. Now, if we assumed Starlink traded at a price to sales of 25, basically close to NVIDIA's, that would mean that on $1 billion in revenue, they would be worth $25 billion in market cap for Starlink alone, not SpaceX as a whole. Now, obviously, we don't have all the numbers. We don't know what it cost them. We don't know any of that because it's a private company, and we can't really, give it a true valuation because we don't have those numbers. But the bottom line is, I can imagine that I feel me and many investors, if we were only to invest in Starlink, not SpaceX as a whole, the valuation could easily be worth much, much higher than 25 billion. You would pay a much higher price to sales because this is just the first year. We're talking about there are going to be many years of extreme high growth in this company, and the total addressable market is literally every single person on Earth. Now, as far as expansion, Elon Musk is looking to have Starlink provide fast, reliable internet worldwide. So much of the world still doesn't have access to the internet at all. And of all the places with internet, much of those places are basically just slow internet that isn't sufficient for streaming and gaming, etc. Now, the reason why we have that situation is because a lot of high-speed internet comes down to infrastructure. And in places like, where you're in the middle of the woods, or you're, deep in China and areas, or India, or the Middle East, and just tons and tons, Africa, tons of places where there just isn't any infrastructure to get internet access there. Now, since Starlink is a satellite-based internet, these satellites are, SpaceX launches them into space. Basically, you get this terminal from them, and it's basically plug and point. You plug in this dish. I put a picture of the dish there. If you have access to electricity, that's all you need. You point it to the sky. Now you have an internet connection. So, Starlink's IPO. This news is basically a great step towards an eventual Starlink IPO, in my opinion. And the reason is because Elon has stated many times, when a lot of Tesla fans are asking, oh, can we invest in Starlink? He said the reason that they haven't IPO'd it or spun it out yet or anything like that is because it just doesn't have the revenue or reasonable, predictable revenue to make investors, feel comfortable about it and make them have to deal with the quarterly earnings reports, etc. It's just not worth it. Now that the Starlink terminals are live and there's a subscription service to get this internet, you pay monthly, it makes the revenue much more predictable. It's not like, oh, just how many of these terminals can we sell? But now that there are terminals actually out there, 100,000 terminals with another 500,000 ready to be shipped, as they get produced, I think that we're maybe 2 years away from Starlink deciding to do an IPO or spin off in some way or form from SpaceX, to basically give investors kind of reasonable revenue numbers with reasonable expectations of what to come based on some history. Now, the key is to reduce the cost to manufacture the terminals and to increase the production speed to make them as quick as possible once you have this demand there. So some questions about the Starlink IPO that I just want to run through with you all. If you have any opinions on these questions or answers on them that you think, definitely write it in the comments. The first is, do you think Starlink should IPO in general? Like, should this company IPO? If it did, would you invest in it? Obviously, in my opinion, I would love it to IPO, not only because I'm an investor in SpaceX, but I think it just has so much potential profits and cash flow that it will make down the road that it would just be great to give the public the ability to invest earlier than later. Second, should it stay in SpaceX? Like, should it just stay privately in SpaceX? For me, I do think it makes sense for Starlink to stay in SpaceX because it needs SpaceX to continue to send out more satellites and continuously update them, etc. So they are basically one company, and it makes sense for them to stay one company, but I do want the retail investor to have access to participate in the success of Starlink. So that brings us to question 3, which is, should SpaceX as a whole just IPO? My immediate reaction is I would love SpaceX to IPO, but the more you think about it, it's very tough for that to ever happen because SpaceX's goal is basically to create this colony on Mars, and that kind of goal and ambition isn't best served in a public company. That's something that is going to be great for the Earth, but public companies that are really, their investors are looking quarter to quarter about profits and this and that, it is very tough to kind of convince the public markets that you're just going to keep plowing your profits into a mission to go to Mars. So that's the reason I don't think SpaceX itself should be a public company. I do think Starlink has more potential to be public on its own. Now, should Tesla acquire Starlink? I think that would be better than Starlink going off on its own. I think Tesla's becoming this conglomerate more than just cars and energy. They showed it with the Tesla bot. And they already work with SpaceX and share certain employees like the materials scientists, etc. So I think that would be better than Starlink on its own and better than SpaceX coming out as a IPO. And then the final thing is, should Elon just merge all his companies into one company? You know, they've thought about it and spoke about it on Twitter before, maybe Company X, which he owns from back in the PayPal days. Should all Tesla, the Boring Company, Starlink, SpaceX, should everything just be in one company, the like overall Elon Musk company? And if it was, would you invest in it? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for watching. If you haven't liked this video yet, please smash the like button. And if you're not subscribed, definitely subscribe to the channel. We're going to be doing a AirPods giveaway at 2,000 subscribers. If you haven't seen that video, go back, check it out. Definitely enter. Appreciate you all. Until next time.